How do we walk with God in an increasingly post-Christian world? There are many ways to respond to this challenge, but in recent years we have seen 5 major responses. Resignation and assimilation. In this view, we are to simply accept the changes in the culture and, as Ross Douthat writes, reconcile ourselves to the new dispensation, accepting that the modern age is not a sacral but a secular age, that the state can no longer be treated as the secular arm of the spiritual power, that the freedom of individual conscience is one of the crucial assets of our civilization, and place our hope in the Church's liberty, its opportunity to act as spiritual leaven. One version of resignation and assimilation is what has been termed moralistic therapeutic deism, which seems at best Christianity light. God exists and created the world and cares about it. He wants people to be nice and fair to other people. The central goal of life is to be happy and feel good about ourselves. God is not particularly involved in our lives except when he is needed to resolve a problem, and good people go to heaven when they die. Withdrawal and retrenchment. Another strategy has been to hunker down in a community of like-minded believers and create a parallel polis, a separate but porous Christian culture, existing alongside the dominant culture, particularly focusing on education and the development of virtue. Christians with this thinking attempt to hold on to the historic mindset of Christendom, or simply to continue doing what we've been doing without any reference to the significantly changed cultural context of Western societies. Fear. Our world is caught up in fear, and Christians are not immune to this. Young adults today are, a little tense. Anxiety about important decisions, uncertainty about the future, and fear of failure are among respondents' most commonly reported emotions. Near constant connection to and emotional investment in what's going on around the world is a defining trait of my generation, but more personal, supportive connections aren't quite so common. Fear is not limited to younger Christians. We don't need to have many conversations before we see it evidenced in older Christians as well. Seeking power. For those of us who have the opportunity to elect our government officials, we should engage in that process, seeking those who best support our values. Not all Christians agree on the best way to embody these values in the laws and regulations of the land. At best, the state's role addressing human problems is partial and limited. It is true that laws are not neutral, they do reflect values. But laws cannot generate values, or instill values, or settle the conflict over values. The belief that the state could help us care more for the poor and the elderly, slow the disintegration of traditional values, generate respect among different groups, or create civic pride is mostly illusory. It imputes far too much capacity to the state and to the political process. Why do we want power? Is it really a mask for personal ambition? To dominate? To manipulate? Anger. A fifth strategy might be called Christ against culture on steroids. This approach sees the dominant culture as one that is altogether without redeeming value and should therefore be actively opposed rather than simply engaged. This strategy argues that to try to appeal to the dominant culture through a gentle, loving, or winsome attitude is a waste of time. These Christians argue that the church should be on offense rather than on defense when it comes to dealing with the dominant culture. When we see white Christian nationalists screaming in the face of authority on the nightly news, we know that posture does not represent Christian behavior. When we see left-leaning Christians angrily demanding their position in the argument, we know that posture does not represent Christian behavior, and yet these conflicts are often the way Christianity is perceived by the watching world. There is, however, another approach that doesn't get as much attention as the other 5, dedicating our lives to seeking the world's good and cooperating with God in the work of redemption and restoration that He is doing. Using Jeremiah 29 verse 7, "Seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper." This strategy seeks to partner with God in the work He is already doing across every aspect of society.